Wondering what the resistance requirements are for raiding in Phase 2? In this video, we'll cover the Frost, Nature, and Fire res gear for both plate and leather tanks that I've compiled into an easy-to-share spreadsheet with item names, slots, resistance value, source, and materials required to craft. So without further ado, let's get to it. Phase 2 brings in Tier 5 of raiding, and because we haven't been able to actually test the raids yet, we're only aware of 2 bosses that we absolutely need to be prepared for resilience gear with at the moment. So of course, I will keep the spreadsheet updated as more info comes to light, so bear that in mind for in the future. So with Hydros the Unstable from SSC, that requires 1 Frost res tank and 1 Nature res tank. The encounter will switch between the 2 phases that will change the damage type that's dealt by the boss. And then also in SSC, we've got Leothoris the Blind, who has a demon phase that causes fire damage, so the tank needs to be prepared for that as well. So the resistance cap is 365, and there is some crazy deep voodoo magic maths behind it, like it's resisting 75% of the damage 80% of the time or something along those lines. I'm not a wizard, so no deep dive on the maths here from me. Something worth bearing in mind is that resistance buffs are available outside of gear, from Paladin's auras for 70 apiece, the Druid buff bringing 33, Hunter's Aspect of the Wild for 70 res, and the Flask of Chromatic Wonder for 35. So let's move on to the gear. First up, we have the Frost plate gear. There's the Ice Guard helm, which brings you 50 frost resistance. It's crafted by blacksmiths who can get hold of the pattern at Honored with the Violet Eye. Requires 8 Corian bar, 12 primal water, 12 primal fire, and 1 primal nether. Then there's the Glyph of Frost warding, which provides 20 frost resistance to your head slot. This is acquired for 100 gold once you've reached Honored with the Keepers of Time. The Pendant of Thoring is a neck that's crafted from jewel crafters who have reached Revered with Lower City for 2 fell steel bars, 4 primal water, 6 primal fire, and 1 mercurial adamantite. The Inscription of Endurance is a shoulder enchant that you can get from being honored with the Violet Eye for 30 gold. Enchant Cloak Major Resistance is going to increase your resistance by 7 and requires 4 Greater Planar Essence, 4 primal air, earth, fire, and water. The Ice Guard breastplate is going to bring you 60 frost resistance and requires 8 Corian bar, 12 primal water and fire, and 1 primal nether. The Ice Guard leggings will also bring 60 frost resistance at the cost of 8 Corian bar, 12 primal water and fire, and 1 primal nether. The Frozen Eye is a ring that will provide 35 frost resistance, created by jewel crafters who are honored with the Violet Eye for 2 Corian bar, 4 mercurial adamantite, and 6 primal water and fire. You're going to want to acquire 4 frost armor kits, which will provide 8 resistance to chest, leg, hands, and feet respectively. This will cost a total of 16 heavy not hide leather and 16 primal fire. And lastly, you're going to want to enchant your shield for frost resistance to provide 8 extra frost resist. This is an old world classic pattern, so it should be pretty cheap to acquire and cost 1 large radiant shard and 1 frost oil. Now let's move over to the nature plate gear. The Wild Guard helm will provide 50 nature resistance, crafted by a blacksmiths who are revered with Cenarian Expedition, and will cost 8 fell steel bar, 12 primal life and shadow, and 1 primal nether. Glyph of Nature warding is a head enchant provided by being honored with Cenarian Expedition for 100 gold, which gives 20 nature resistance. The Pendant of Withering will give you 30 nature resistance and is crafted by jewel crafters who are revered with the Scryers for 2 fell steel bar, 4 primal water, 6 primal fire, and 1 mercurial adamantite. Again, the Inscription of Endurance, the shoulder enchant for being honored with the Violet Eye for 7 resistance for 30 gold. The Wild Guard breastplate provides 60 nature resistance and is crafted by blacksmiths who are exalted with the Cenarian Expedition for 8 fell steel bar, 12 primal life and shadow, and 1 primal nether. Enchant Cloak Greater Nature Resistance will provide 50 nature res and requires enchanters to be honored with a Cenarian Circle. This will cost 2 small prismatic shards, 3 greater planar essences, and 4 living essence. The Wild Guard leg guards will provide 60 nature res and requires blacksmiths to be revered with the Cenarian Expedition. This will cost you 8 fell steel bar, 12 primal life and shadow, and 1 primal nether. The Natural Ward is a ring that provides 35 nature res and is created by jewel crafters who are exalted with Cenarian Expedition. This costs 2 fell steel bar, 4 mercurial adamantite, 6 primal shadow, and life. And lastly are the nature armor kits, which provide 8 nature res to the chest, leg, hands, and feet, altogether for 32 points of resistance. This is created by Leatherworking, and in total for the lot will cost 16 heavy not hide leather and 16 primal shadow. And lastly for plate wearers is the fire res gear. First up is the Flame Bane helm, crafted by blacksmiths, which provide 40 fire resistance. This will cost you 12 fell iron bars, 5 primal water, and 3 primal fire. The Inferno Tempered chest guard provides 60 fire resistance and will cost 30 badges of justice. The Inferno Tempered gauntlets provide 40 fire resistance and will cost 20 badges of justice. And the Inferno Tempered legs will provide 55 fire resistance resistance and will cost you 30 badges of justice. Bringing things to a close with the Phoenix Fire Band, which will provide 30 fire resistance and requires you to complete the Trial of Naru Magtheridon, which you have to kill Maggie in the raid. So taking a look at the Druids now, their gear approach is a little different compared to plate tanks. You're going to want to focus on items that you need for the respective role and damage that you're going to be assigned to tank. Get this organized ahead of time with your raid leader and co-tanks to make sure you don't waste any of your time in your gearing process. Regardless of the resistance type that you're assigned, you're going to need to acquire some of the same items for your tank set and fill them out with void spheres in the gem slots acquired from enchanting. With 24 resilience rating, which actually does count towards your resistance, and then +4 resist for having a void sphere in the sockets as well. This comes from PvP and will cost you 14,400 honor and 30 AV marks. The shoulder pads of assassination drop from Setek Halls, providing 8 resistance with 2 void spheres. The inscription of endurance is a shoulder enchant that you can get from being honored with the Violet Eye for 30 gold. Enchant Cloak major resistance is going to increase your resistance by 7 and requires 4 greater planar essence, 4 primal air, earth, fire and water. Cyranus' Mystic Sheen is a cloak that provides 12 resistance to all schools of magic and drops in the Botanica. The Heavy Cleft Hoof Vest will provide 12 resistance with 3 void spheres and requires a leather worker to be honored with a Cenarian Expedition for 6 heavy knot-hide leather, 40 thick cleft hoof leather, 4 primal earth and 2 rune thread. The Wastewalker gloves will provide 8 total resistance with 2 void spheres and drops from the Shattered Halls. The Heavy Cleft Hoof leggings will provide 12 resistance with 3 void spheres and requires leather workers to be honored with a Cenarian Expedition. This will cost you 6 heavy knot-hide leather, 34 thick cleft hoof leather, 4 primal earth and 2 rune thread. And lastly, the Heavy Cleft Hoof boots will provide 8 resistance with 2 void spheres and requires a leather worker to be friendly with a Cenarian Expedition. These cost 4 heavy knot-hide leather, 20 thick cleft hoof leather, 4 primal earth and 2 rune thread. One thing that I might have forgotten to clear up is that the void spheres that I've been mentioning throughout the video are created by enchanters and require 2 void crystals to turn into a 1 void sphere, which provides 4 resistance to all schools of magic. These match red, yellow and blue sockets. Once you've collected those pieces, you're going to want to fill in the neck, ring, enchants, and armor kits from your required resilience type. Either go for the Glyph of Nature warding, which requires you to be honored with the Cenarian Expedition, or the Glyph of Frost warding, which requires you to be honored with the Keepers of Time. Similarly, you need to make the choice between the Pendant of Withering, which would be a 13 nature resistance. This is created by jewel crafters who are revered with scryers for 2 fell steel bars, 4 primal water, 6 primal fire, and 1 mercurial adamantite, or the Pendant of Thawing, which is the 30 frost resistance equivalent, again created by jewel crafters who are revered with the lowest city, and requires the same mats except it's 6 primal fire and 4 primal water. The Natural Ward provides 35 nature resistance for a ring created by jewel crafters who are exalted with the Cenarian Expedition and will cost 2 fell steel bar, 4 mercurial adamantite, 6 primal life and 6 primal shadow. Alternatively, there's the Frozen Eye providing a frost resistance equivalent, although easier to craft for jewel crafters who are honored with the Violet Eye. This requires 4 mercurial adamantite, 2 corium bar, 6 primal water and fire. Then you have to make your choice between nature armor kits or frost armor kits. Both of these require leather working and in total will set you back 16 heavy knot-hide leather and either 16 primal shadow or 16 primal fire depending on frost or nature, and will provide in total 32 resistance when applied to chest, leg, hands and feet. And lastly, an extra one for Frost is to get your faction's equivalent of the Elteric Valley rank 6 insignia, providing 10 frost resistance. And lastly, for Druid tanks, your fire res gear comes from a combination of quests, dungeons, leather working, raids, and badges of justice. Again, the Gladiator's Dragon Hell makes an appearance, providing 24 resilience and then 4 extra resist with the Void Sphere. This will cost you 1,440 honor and 30 AV marks. The Amulet of the Torn Heart is a neck which provides 24 fire resistance and is acquired by completing the Cipher of Damnation quest. The Shoulder Pads of Assassination will provide 8 resilience with 2 Void Spheres and is dropped from the Setek Halls. The Inferno Hardened Chest Guard will provide 60 fire resistance and cost 30 badges of justice. The Inferno Hardened Gloves will provide 40 fire resistance and will cost 20 badges of justice. The Blast Guard Belt provides 30 fire resistance and an extra 8 with 2 Void Spheres socketed in. This is crafted by leather workers for 4 heavy knot-hide leather, 6 fell hide, 3 primal fire, and water. The Inferno Hardened Leggings will provide 55 fire resistance for 30 badges of justice. The Inferno Hardened Boots will provide 45 fire resistance for 20 badges of justice. And lastly, the Phoenix Fire Band will provide 30 fire resistance and is acquired by completed the Trial of Naru Magtheridon, which requires you to kill Maggie in the raid. And with that, it's the end of the video. Like and subscribe to see more content, ring the bell to never miss a video, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you can become a member for cheaper than a Twitch sub with all the benefits plus more. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you next time.